Hi everyone, Jason Roberts here. Last week I recorded a brief video on the state of the market and why it's so hard to find a job today. And I had a bunch of questions that came back to me. Basically, hey, when do you think this is going to turn around? And I want to spend a few minutes talking about that. Now, in the meantime, there is a resource that I've created for you that you can use in order to amplify your resume to get you prepared to apply for the right job and actually do that work right now. Start applying for the right jobs right now so that you can take advantage of the market when it turns around. So let me dive into this. For a quick recap, the market is tougher now than it was before. There were twice as many people applying for half as many jobs is where the math goes. Twice as many people applying for half as many jobs equals 4 times as difficult to find a job today. And we know that from data coming out of a number of hiring authorities, and we know that's an ongoing issue. So when is this going to turn around? Here's what I'll say. There's normally a slump. I've been recruiting for 25 years now. And I can tell you there's a summer slump that shows up, and we get a much more depressed market. So there's a decrease in hires over the summer. And then there's an increase in hires coming out of the summer. So you're looking at September, October, November, up until you get to, in the U.S., Thanksgiving, and then into the Christmas holidays. End of November, things start to slow. Around the Christmas holiday, they fall off a cliff. Nobody hires for we'll call it the last week of December, first week of January, and things ramp back to a pretty normal pace starting mid-January, and then we get to hold that pace until we get to, again, the summer slump. This happens because the interviewers aren't available, right? So you've got people that it's their job to interview candidates as they go, and the interviewers aren't available when they're on vacation. You can't get those things done. So when do I think this is going to turn around? It's going to turn around, I believe, in September. That's based on historic knowledge, seeing what the market does. That's what's going to happen. Here's the other thing I'll say. This market is behaving differently than any I've ever seen. I can usually smell a recession from a long way away. I can usually tell what's happening because what happens is the recruiters get impacted first. You'll see recruiters getting laid off. You'll see their jobs start to slow. Recruiters start to feel it. It's not as busy. People are taking longer to make decisions. It's harder to get requisitions approved. So we get like this early sixth sense that kicks in when things slow down. When things speed up, it's the opposite. When things speed up, and today, for those of you that are going to watch this later, today is the end of September 22nd, as I record this in 2023. So what I can tell you is today, we're starting to feel some of the opposite behaviors in the market. So we're seeing requisitions start to escalate, start to improve. We're seeing more of those come through for us. We're seeing a number of open positions go up. So the requisition inventory, as they might call it, is starting to creep upward a little bit. And we're settling into the industries where we think there's going to be hiring or not. The tech companies that did all their big layoffs, they've had time for the dust to settle. I imagine that they're going to pick things up at some point. So that's the big ones, like the ones who had the biggest cuts were like Twitter and Facebook and those places. I'm guessing that those guys are going to pick up pretty soon. Facebook has said they're going to start hiring, and they've actually picked up a couple of recruiters that I've seen. I've also seen Google pick up their hiring. So my friends who work at Google are telling me that that's happening. So it's starting to creep up. Now, nobody's hitting the gas. Nobody's saying, let's do it, let's go. But we are seeing a slight increase, which is what I would expect coming out of the summer. They had layoffs. Did you know that the first quarter of 2023, more layoffs than the full year of 2022? That is wild. And now that dust has settled, and what happens is a company will typically do layoffs. They'll cut a little deeper than they need. Dust will settle. They'll use that time to reestablish, reorganize, and figure out what skills they do need to hire. They'll go back to the market in order to rehire those skills. Now, what we still see, and what I don't think is going to change, is the churn-related jobs. When I say churn-related jobs, what I mean is we had this thing that happened, the Great Resignation. We all heard about this idea of the Great Resignation. People left their companies in mass, more than normal. It was significantly more than normal. But what I think has happened is once you get to a new job, you don't want to leave immediately. You want to give it a couple of years. The norm is to stay in a job for 2 years these days. So you want to give it a couple of years. And once you've done that, then you kind of feel comfortable exploring options and being open at least to options. All of those people, just think about the disproportionate number of people who left their jobs and started something new. All that churn in the marketplace created great demand for recruiters, great demand for hiring activity, and we haven't caught up to that. All those people that changed jobs, they're still in their honeymoon phase. They're early in their time there. I don't think that will correct for another year, maybe year and a half. I think that's going to be a little while. Now, I do think we're going to see an increase. I don't think we're going to be back to the sort of hiring we saw last year. It's really strange to me. The JOLTS report still says we have incredibly low unemployment. What we're seeing is on the professional hires, the technology roles, the financial services roles, and those sorts of places, we're seeing a significant impact to that market. Also, I believe some of the tech companies had gotten a little bit inflated, and they realized that. That's why they did these layoffs. They had more people than they needed, and they were chasing projects they didn't need to chase. They weren't saying no early enough. Like Steve Jobs is famous for saying no. They weren't saying no early enough in their process. So what was happening in that space is that did have a correction to their number of people that they needed in the organization. So they started reducing, and they reduced. I don't think they're going to hire back to their full set. What that might mean is there was a time in the market where there were not enough technologists for the jobs. I think that's going to change. I think the technologists, the software engineers, the database people, maybe even data science, though data science I think is lagging really significantly in availability of skills. I think that's going to start to correct itself where the demand goes down for some of those technology related roles, and it equalizes the availability of skills, which means we probably don't have to import as much talent. We don't have to go to the extremes of wild training programs that we've had in the past, and we'll see that equal out here in the next little bit. I don't think technology has a full rebound. On the same note, if we continue to see bank consolidations, and we've seen a little bit of bank failure, a little bit of bank consolidation at the beginning of the year. If we continue to see that consolidation, which I anticipate happening, there won't be as much demand on the financial services side, especially the challenges we have with interest rates. Money was cheap, almost free for a long time. So when money's more expensive, like it is now with higher interest rates, thank you Fed, when money is more expensive, you don't have as many bankers. You don't need as many people making loans. People can't afford the loans as much. So that demand goes down. Ultimately, the supply goes down because in the form of the number of people who can actually do that work for you. So you'll see, I believe, banking and finance remain depressed, and I believe you'll see the tech industry recover some, but not to its full height, not to the frenzy that it was in before. Coming out of the pandemic, technology just went hog wild. People were hiring left and right. I've never seen such a hiring frenzy in the market. People couldn't get enough people to do the work they needed. They couldn't hire fast enough. So what ended up happening is that as soon as they had an inkling of an idea, they just opened a rec, made a hire, and started the search process at least. And if they could find somebody, they hired them, period. So if they could find somebody, they just immediately hired them. And it was one of those, there's scarcity in the market, I'm going to buy. It's a classic sales technique. The market itself was saying there's scarcity in the market, you should buy. And these hiring managers were buying like crazy. We've now seen a correction. I think we're coming out of that. And you'll see a nice bounce here in the fall. It's going to slow down in the holidays. Don't worry, that happens every year. It'll slow down in the holidays, and then you'll see a nice bump again in the beginning of the year, all the way till we get back to the old summer slump. And the summer slump's a real thing. It's not going away. It's been around for a long time. Hopefully this helps you. Again, a couple of resources for you. If you want to understand the full end-to-end hiring process, there's a free download for you called Exec Congress/Hired, Exec Congress/Hired. You can download that. It illustrates the end-to-end hiring process. If you want my tips, my 10 tips to amplify your resume, you can go to execcongress/resume. Those are free to you. I don't charge a penny for that. That is my gift to you. So best of luck out there in your job search. If you've been impacted by a layoff, I just recorded something on the things you need to do after a layoff. Make sure you do that. The 5 things you should do after a layoff. I think those tips will help you out quite a bit. Have a great one all. Happy hunting.